Hey everyone, welcome. Let's just jump right into it. Today we're unlocking the secrets of literally one of the most fascinating engines on Earth, the human heart. Specifically, we're going to focus on how the heart actually generates its very own rhythm. We'll be looking at the physiology of cardiac conduction, exploring the truly unique characteristics of cardiac muscle cells, and mapping out the electrical pathways that keep us alive, beat after beat. It's this brilliant, totally self-sustaining system, and we are going to break the whole thing down right now. So I want you to start by asking yourself a quick question. What if your body had a built-in backup generator? Like normally, we think of the brain as the ultimate boss, right? Sending nervous signals to every muscle, telling it exactly when to move. But the heart's a little rebellious. It's a completely self-contained electrical grid. It creates its own internal spark and runs its own current, entirely independently. In fact, even if you were to sever all nerve connections to the heart, it would literally just keep beating. So how is that structurally possible?
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The heart's unique muscle.
If you look at cardiac muscle tissue under a microscope, you can clearly see these faintly striated, branching fibers that form this vast interconnected network. But the true magic? It's in those darker bands connecting the cells. Those are called intercalated discs. These discs contain structures called desmosomes that hold the cells tightly together when they contract. And even more importantly, they contain gap junctions. These gap junctions act like microscopic tunnels between adjacent cells, allowing electrical impulses to spread instantly from one fiber right to its neighbors. It essentially turns millions of individual cells into one massive, unified, functional syncytium.
And because of that exact structure, a single cardiac muscle cell, or myocyte, possesses what I kind of like to call these 4 cellular superpowers. First up, automaticity. That's the incredible ability to spontaneously initiate an impulse all on its own. Second is excitability, how well the cell actually responds to that electrical stimulus. Third is conductivity, its ability to rapidly pass that impulse right along to its neighbor through those gap junctions we just saw. And finally, contractility, the mechanical ability to literally shorten and contract once the electrical signal is received. Working together, these 4 superpowers guarantee a perfectly synchronized network-wide heartbeat.
Moving right along to Section 2, generating the cardiac spark.
Let's zoom in even further and look at the precise cellular sequence of a ventricular action potential. This is the actual spark of a heart muscle cell. So it starts at phase 4, the resting membrane potential, sitting quietly at -90 millivolts. Then boom! Phase 0 happens, the upstroke. Sodium channels suddenly snap open and positively charged sodium just rushes into the cell, spiking the voltage. Phase 1 is a brief dip, a characteristic notch where those sodium channels close. Then comes the absolutely crucial Phase 2, the plateau. Here, special L-type or long-lasting calcium channels open up. Calcium floods in, keeping the cell electrically charged and triggering the physical muscle contraction. Finally, in Phase 3, potassium rushes out of the cell to repolarize it, bringing it right back down to Phase 4 so it can rest and prep for the next beat.
Now, did you notice how long that plateau phase makes the whole process? That creates a very long absolute refractory period, which is basically a window of time where the cell absolutely cannot fire another action potential no matter how strong the stimulus is. So why is a long refractory period a good thing? Well, it's a lifesaver. Because it takes so long to reset, the heart muscle cannot be tensionized. In everyday terms, your heart muscle can never physically cramp up and lock into a permanent contraction the way a calf muscle cramp does. It is biologically forced to relax and fill with blood before it can ever beat again.
All right, Section 3, the pacemaker's funny currents.
When we contrast these 2 types of cells, there is a massive difference. Standard ventricular cells have a nice, flat, stable resting potential. They just wait to be told what to do. But the sinoatrial, or SA node cells, which act as the heart's primary pacemaker, they do not. They lack a stable resting potential entirely. And while ventricular cells rely on that massive rush of sodium for their upstroke, SA node cells actually rely almost entirely on an influx of calcium for theirs. So they are fundamentally wired differently so they can be fully automated.
Now, what's really interesting about this is exactly how that automation works. It's driven by something scientists literally named funny currents. Normally, voltage-gated channels open when a cell becomes more positive. But these funny channels are weird. They actually open upon hyperpolarization, meaning when the cell becomes more negative at the very end of a beat. So as soon as the SA node finishes one beat and drops back down, these funny channels instantly trigger a slow leak of positive ions back in, slowly drifting the voltage right back up until it hits the threshold and fires again, automatically, endlessly. This funny current is quite literally the origin of your baseline heartbeat.
Which brings us to Section 4, the heart's electrical grid.
Keep this foundational definition in mind as we look at the whole grid. The human heartbeat is myogenic. Because that spontaneous funny current we just talked about originates from within the cardiac muscle tissue itself and not from your brain or some external nerve, the heart is 100% self-sufficient in generating the stimulus for its own contraction. So once that SA node up at the top of the right atrium fires its myogenic spark, where does it go? Well, the excitation wave first spreads across the atria, causing them to contract, and then hits step 2, the atrioventricular, or AV node. Now, the AV node purposefully delays the signal for just a split second, and that's to let the ventricles fully fill up with blood. Then it shoots the signal down the bundle of His, straight down the center of the heart, and finally up the sides through the incredibly fast Purkinje fibers. This sequence ensures the heart pumps from the bottom up, squeezing blood out as efficiently as possible.
And this brilliantly illustrates the built-in fail-safes of this grid. The heart actually has multiple pacemakers. The SA node naturally fires at about 60 to 100 beats per minute. Because it's the fastest, it overrides everything else. We call this the override phenomenon. But imagine someone has a heart attack and the SA node is destroyed. Does the heart just stop? No way! The AV node, which naturally fires at 40 to 60 beats per minute, senses the silence and just takes over the job. If the AV node fails, the Purkinje fibers act as a final backup at 20 to 40 beats per minute. Your heart literally has a backup generator for its backup generator.
Finally, Section 5, reading the rhythm.
This right here is the classic electrocardiogram, or ECG. You know that familiar beep on a hospital monitor? That is just a direct translation of the cellular action potentials we mapped out earlier. The first little bump, the P wave, is the SA node firing and the atria depolarizing. That flat line right after, that's that crucial AV nodal delay, waiting for blood to fill the lower chambers. Then, the massive QRS complex is the electrical wave just rocketing down the bundle of His and Purkinje fibers, causing the massive ventricular contraction. And finally, the T wave is the ventricles repolarizing, resetting all those ions for the very next beat. So every wave on an ECG is telling us exactly what those tiny ion channels are doing in real time.
To wrap things up, I want to leave you with something to apply directly to yourself right now. We know this entire electrical grid exists purely to pump blood. And the total amount of blood ejected per minute is your cardiac output. That equals your heart rate multiplied by your stroke volume, which is just the amount of blood pushed out per beat. So if your heart is beating at roughly 75 beats per minute right now, driven by those funny currents, and it's pumping about 70 milliliters of blood per beat, what's your cardiac output? It's over 5 liters of blood a minute. Your entire blood volume cycles through your whole body every 60 seconds, all powered by microscopic calcium and sodium channels spontaneously firing in the dark. It is an absolute marvel of biology. So think about that the next time you feel your pulse. Thanks for joining me on this explainer and keep learning.